So Blumhouse, it's coming up, it's over 15 years now, right? And in that time, it's gotten Academy Awards. It's made so much profit off the budgets that you've given your filmmakers. It's launched so many iconic horror properties and franchises. But I want to go before Blumhouse and just kind of talk to you about your start in the industry, because I was reading from the book, the Book of Blum, and it's got a lot of really great, valuable, candid information in there. And one of the things I saw was that Ethan Hawke met you when you were 22, and you were already calling yourself a producer, even though you hadn't technically produced anything, but you were still calling yourself that, you know? Maybe it was the fake it till you make it thing, but what made you want to be a producer rather than a writer, a director, an actor?
I was a terrible actor, so that really helped. I always loved movies and TV shows and theater and books, stories. I love stories. I loved stories when I was in college. I still love stories, and I couldn't do many of the other things, but so I figured like I should be a producer. And yeah, I met Ethan early on. I graduated college in 1991, and I lived in Chicago for a year. My roommate was Noah Baumbach, and my roommate at Vassar was Noah Baumbach. And the first movie I figured out how to do was a movie called Kicking and Screaming, which was Noah's first movie. But I met Ethan in New York, and Ethan always said, like, everyone in their early 20s wanted to be an actor or director like you. He's like, there was one guy who wanted to be a producer, so we teamed up and started a theater company together. And one kind of fun story about that, we had this little theater company called Malapart, and we had a little 99-seat theater on 42nd Street, and it was right when Ethan had done Reality Bites, so he was super famous. And so he and I would go to TKTS, and all the people waiting in line would, oh my God, that's Ethan Hawke. And as soon as someone would do that, I would run up and say, instead of waiting online here, you could see Ethan in a play. The ticket's $10 and the play's right here, and here's the flyer. And we sold out our little run for 3 months. Yeah, it was pretty good. It was fun.
Yeah, I think that feels familiar in the things I've read about you, just the ways you are able to penetrate all the noise and get your things made. Because with Kicking and Screaming, I saw that you started sending the screenplay around with a letter from Steve Martin attached to the top of it, because you had him read it and you said, if you like it, could you write a letter to me saying you like it?
I've always loved sales. So my and that's still what I do is sales. I'm always selling everything. Now I'm selling a book. My first job, when I lived in Chicago with Noah, I sold cable TV door to door like Willy Loman, like really like Willy Loman. Like you got a list of addresses of people who didn't have cable. It was the early 90s, and you knocked cold calls on the door. And should I tell the story? Sure, why not? It's kind of fun. This is when I was an actor for 6 months. I was an actor in college, and I was an actor for 6 months after I graduated college. And as I said, very, very bad at it. But I was in a couple terrible plays in Chicago, and I had the flyers in this little like briefcase or whatever, this little bag. And I would knock on the door, and most people, the minute they saw you and they didn't recognize you, they'd shut the door. But if I could get a crack, I'd say, just give me. Do you have 4 minutes? 4 minutes to support the arts, which would catch a couple people off guard. My name is Jason Blum. I'm doing this play. I'm trying to be an actor. Here's the flyer. It's really for real. Instead of being a waiter, I'm selling cable TV. This is what I do, and here's the deal. And this was true. This was the actual deal. You get free installation. You give me 2 months, which was like $60, $29 a month. You give me $2. I need to collect 2 months. I need to get a check now. Leave the house now. But installation is free. And if you cancel within 30 days, you get your $60 back. By the way, I will call you in 29 days, which I did. I would put on my calendar. I would say the worst case scenario of this transaction, all of which is true, is you get free cable for a month, and you support the arts, and that's a great thing. And I sold a lot of cable TV.
Great.
And then I graduated from cable TV sales, and I became a real estate agent. So I passed I went to the Bronx and I took a 2-week, I don't know how it works out, but you had a 2-week course. And I got my real estate agent, and I ran around New York trying to get money for Noah's movie, and I'm getting to Steve Martin in a second, trying to get money for Noah's movie, and supporting myself by doing real estate, which I loved because you could do your own hours, you could work, and the theme of this, besides being a salesman, is I have always been I never wanted to earn a salary or get paid for like hours in the office. I always wanted to earn based on what I did. So like the cable TV, it was a commission-only job. If you sold nothing all day, you worked all day, you got nothing. If you sold 10 cable things, you got $500. Same thing with real estate. If you sold the apartment, obviously you got paid, or rented it. I was in rentals. If you rent, our movie business is the same thing. That's what our movie business was based on, which is instead of taking money up front, and this is what we still do 20 years later, I never take money up front. I only take money if the movie makes money. And that has a wonderful positive effect on many, many different things. You get to do what you want to do. You don't have to listen to the person giving you the money so much. We could talk about that later if people are interested in that. But I'm going to go back to Steve Martin. So I'm a real estate agent in New York, and I'm trying to raise money for Noah's movie, very unsuccessfully. And my father, who's still alive, used to be an art dealer. He's retired, and one of his collectors was Steve Martin. Now, I'd never met Steve Martin, and I am always very grateful to my father for this because it's such a now being a dad. Like it would be hard for me to imagine doing this. I guess I would do it, but it was a kind of a weird thing, nice thing for my dad to do. My dad says, my kid, he doesn't know what he's doing, and he's got his other friend who wants to write and direct a movie, and I am embarrassed to ask you, but would you read this script? Which is really nice. And miraculously, Steve Martin says yes. And even more miraculously, he loves the script, which is a miracle. And he writes a letter to me which says, dear Jason, your father gave me this. I think it's great, and da-da-da, and da-da-da-da-da-da. And, of course, as soon as I show this to anyone who really knows what they're doing, they're like, you got to get him to be in it. You got to get him to be in it, which we didn't do. But what I did do is I called him, and I remember I'd never spoken to him before, and I remember my hand going, shaking. And I said, Mr. Martin or Steve or whatever the hell I call you, I'm so grateful that you sent me this letter, and would you allow me to, show this letter to people who are interested in our project? And he very graciously said yes. So this was before email. So he ripped off the cover page of the script, and I slapped that Steve Martin letter on the script, and I resent it to the 300 people who rejected us, and that's what got the movie made. Like the media, it was very cool.
It's funny.
Selling.
It's funny that we kind of have Steve Martin to thank for.
We have Steve Martin to thank. I'll tell you a funny story. So I said that I told that story before, and it was in some article, and I saw Steve Martin at a party, this is such a story of life, and he makes a point. He said, Jason, I said, how are you? He said, I read that. He said, I read that story about the letter. I said, yeah, it was so nice of you. He goes, I don't remember doing that. I go, I have the letter. Do you want me to show you the letter? And he came around, but it was kind of funny.
So you end up with Paranormal Activity, which is kind of, I feel like, the founding film of Blumhouse, right? It's Blumhouse is almost the house that Paranormal built, it feels like. And I know that when you got the script, there were studio heads who wanted to reshoot it with big A-list stars and just make it more professional looking. And you were very much against that. And so another one of your kind of tricks came into play where you wrote into the contract that the new writers they were hiring would have to attend a test screening just so they could see, what works and what doesn't work. But really, you just wanted them to see that the movie was good as it was.
I did. It's true. I'll tell you, I'll give you a little bit more context about Paranormal Activity and kind of the beginning of the company. So I was living in New York. I finally got a job after I got Noah's movie made. I got a job at a little company called Arrow, which is gone now. And I was working at distribution companies for independent movies. And I really, really loved the movies, but distribution of independent movies It's really bad now, but even in the 90s, it was better than it is now, but it was really, really frustrating. And my dream all through my 20s was to like become a studio producer and make a big studio movie. When I was in my early 30s, I guess, in 2000, I was 30, I moved to LA, and another long story, I got a production deal at Paramount through some crazy fluke. And I finally got a studio movie made, and the studio movie was called The Tooth Fairy with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. You remember that? So I produced that movie, which is the only thing of the gazillion things we've done, the only thing my children are like, can't believe their dad is so cool. He did The Tooth Fairy. So anyway, when I went on set, we shot the movie in Vancouver, and what happened, of course, is that it was the experience of which I had been dreaming about was horrible. It was a super expensive movie at the time, and when the movie's expensive, I learned that there's a million people involved, and it's all about the politics, and it's nothing to do with the movie, and all about the movie star and the trailer and what he eats for lunch and what he has for coffee, and it's just like so boring, and the whole experience was horrible until the movie was finished, and we got to the distribution of The Tooth Fairy. And the distribution was amazing because I'd been working at a little company and then a bigger company, but I'd been working in independent film, and there's like 4 or 5 people working on your movie to distribute it. The guy who makes the poster and the person who sells it to cable TV and a few other people. You go into Fox, it's a room like this with as many people in here all working on The Tooth Fairy. And I'm like, this is amazing. Like there's one person in charge of like promotions in car dealerships in Texas, like for The Tooth Fairy. I'm like, how? It's amazing. And then I'm thinking to myself, the little businessman is like, it's amazing. You pay at that time $10 for a theater ticket, and it's the same price for The Tooth Fairy as it is for this little independent movie. And this game is very unfair. At the same time, The Tooth Fairy came out, Paranormal Activity came out. And I can say how I'll answer your other question in a second, but I'm on a roll here about this. So what happened when those 2 movies came out is it was this, and people say like, did you love horror as a kid? Have you always been a crazy horror fan? Unlike you, I didn't, right? So I came to it in a very different way, which is and the Paranormal Activity was a completely independent movie released by a studio, and The Tooth Fairy was a studio movie released by a studio. But what it coalesced in my mind, and what Blumhouse really is to this day, it weaves and turns, but the movie part of Blumhouse is really what we do is we make fully independent movies, just like I was making in the 90s. We don't have big movie stars. We have short schedules. Not everyone, their budgets are very low. So there's a lot of artistic freedom, creative freedom, casting freedom. Terry Taylor, I've worked with 12 years. I mentioned her before. She's here tonight. We've cast all these fun things together, and we can actually cast great actors. We don't have to talk about movie stars all the time, which again, like I said before, I find so boring. And so the experience of Paranormal, having those 2 movies together is really what gave birth to the company, which is we make movies independently and we have them released by studios. And the only genre that you can really do that with repeatedly is horror. And so when people ask me why we do horror, that's really, now of course I love horror, much to my mother's dismay. I love horror, and I love, my mother said to me, we made The Lost Bus with Matthew McConaughey. She calls that a real movie. So anyway, what's been so fun and what I love about the company is that we get to make independent movies, but we have studio distribution, so a lot of people get to see them. Back to your question. So the way we got Paranormal Activity distributed, it was a long 3-year journey. I saw the DVD of it. I never got the script of it. I saw it as a finished movie, although we did a lot of work on it after I saw it. Oren did a lot of work on it. I made a deal with Oren. He had a $150,000 offer to sell the movie straight to DVD or video at the time. There was no streaming. And I saw the movie. Oren lived in San Diego. He came up to see me and I at a little house in LA. And I saw the movie and I said, this movie's amazing. I said, I fucked up the Blair Witch Project and I passed on it, which I did. And I said, I'm not going to let that happen again. And he said, well, everyone's seen the movie and passed. I said, everyone saw Blair Witch and passed. He said, well, I've got this deal that I kind of want to take. You know, I've been trying to sell the thing for a year. I said, I can get this movie into a movie theater. I know it. I said, I'll take a percentage of everything you make. Again, the deal he had was for 150. I said, I'll take a percentage of everything you make after 500 grand. So unless I triple your money, I'm not going to get paid. But let me try. And luckily, because as everyone here in this room knows, so much of success has to do with luck. If he had been like 23 and living on his friend's couch, he never would have said yes. That would have been the end. That would have been the end of Paranormal Activity, by the way. It would have come out on video. That would have been the end of it. But luckily, he was in his early 30s and he was a video game designer and he was making quite good money. So he wasn't. $150,000 was a lot of money, but it wasn't going to change his life forever, and he had other income. So he said yes. And we made that deal. And I thought within 6 months, you know, I could use my clout to get this thing distributed. And I immediately got an article in the LA Times. I showed it to John Horn, who used to work for the LA Times, Ann Thompson, Hollywood Reporter. I got these big stories in Hollywood Reporter and a big story at the LA Times. And Sundance didn't take the movie, but we brought it to Slam Dance, and everybody, I used everything, and everyone's like, we've seen it. They came to Slam Dance, they all passed, and the whole Paranormal Activity story is like a whole book in and of itself. But basically, a year went by, a bunch of different things happened, and finally, what it came down to is I sold the remake rights to DreamWorks. And I said to Oren, I could not, anyone in this room, if any of you watched Paranormal Activity when I saw it in a room with a big audience, you would know it was a hit movie. But what I couldn't do is get a decision maker in a big room with an audience, because all the decision makers, the people who worked for them, had the copy of the movie, and they'd all seen it and they said it sucked. So I could not get it for years. And I finally got Stacey Snider, and who was running DreamWorks, and Adam Goodman, who was right under her at DreamWorks, into a big room by saying to them, okay, I will let you remake Paranormal Activity with movie stars. Crazy, like found footage with famous people. I don't know how that happened, right? But in order to decide, when we remake the film with these famous actors in the two parts, we need to know what parts we should copy from the first movie and what we should rewrite. So we should have a big test screening in the Valley and invite the writers of the remake of the movie to the test screening so we can all decide. And they said, oh, that's a good idea. Like, we'll do that. I put that in the contract. And then it went back to Oren, who was like, over my dead body are these people remaking this movie, right? I said, Oren, I know. I said, by this point, it's been years, you know, we got to know each other very well. Every time he came to LA, he'd stay with me, so we developed a good relationship. And even though what I told him that night at my house had not yet come true for a long time. So I said, Oren, I promise you, if Stacey Snider watches the movie with an audience, the remake is going to be off the table. Like, they're never going to remake the movie. And I remember Oren, looking at me skeptically. He was like, I will do it on one condition. I said, what is it? He said, if you're wrong, Jason, and if they decide to remake the movie, I want it guaranteed in the contract that on the DVD of the remade Paranormal Activity will also be made available my original film.
As like a bonus feature?
As a bonus feature. The original Paranormal Activity. So I went back to Stacey and I said, can we put that in? You know, I said, he won't do it without this in there. They laughed. They put that in the contract. We had this big screening in Burbank. It's one of those moments you have in your career I'll never forget. I'll never forget the whole thing leading up to. I was so nervous, and And the movie started, and it screened like it always screened, with a room full of people, and everyone went insane, and they jumped out of their seats. 4 people left because they thought they were going to die, and the movie ended, and Stacey Snider came bounding down the aisle. It was one of the great moments of my career, and started pitching. The remake was gone. Like, the writers for the new movie, they went home. And Stacey's like pitching what the 30-second TV spots are going to be for the wide release of Paranormal Activity, which was amazing. Now, of course, what happened after that is DreamWorks got sold to Disney. Disney didn't want to be caught dead releasing a horror movie. Steven Spielberg is like, I've got to give it to Paramount, and Paramount hated the movie. So we just had to start all over again. But it was a great moment, and eventually the movie did. And we made 6 of them, which was we found footage 5 more times.
And remarkably, like, the 6th one is one of my favorites. The 5th one.
The 6th one was not good. Yeah, the 5th one was okay.
5th one, marked ones is better than okay.
Not
it's great.
Not
it's
bad.
real
Not
good.
bad.
Yeah.
Not bad.
So that's what I love.
My favorite was the 3rd one. Was that Henry and Rel? Paranormal
one?
3.
Yeah.
It was great. It was Henry and Rel, and Chris Landon was like the showrunner. That was my favorite.
That has the oscillating fan,
The
right?
oscillating fan.
That's one of my favorite
that was
scares
great. Yeah, that
of
was
all
great.
of them. Yeah. That's what I love about you, Jason, is how candid you are about even
about
your
our
own
good
work.
ones and bad ones.
Yeah. Just because it segues into it, I know it's jumping ahead a lot, but can we talk about Megan and the sequel? Just because Megan is one of my favorites.
That's so painful. You're putting salt in the wound doing that.
I know, but you told me backstage. You said
you could ask anything.
Yeah, you said I can ask anything.
We had Megan, and we were so excited about it, and I love the movie. I'm sure many of you guys saw it. And
you dressed as her.
I dressed as her on
multiple
many occasions.
Yeah.
Much to the dismay of my children and the Carlthorpe School, also very upset about this. Yeah, so the second movie was a bomb, and one of the things it'll come. I'm trying to get it to come back. I'm working on it. It wasn't as bad as everyone said. I mean, it just was.
I think a lot of the people who saw it liked it.
Yeah, just no one saw it.
That's the problem.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
But I went on I did something which is very fun. If anyone's interested, I really. Jamie Lee Curtis, we've done a lot of movies together, and she lives right next to me, and we're good pals, and she's a great person, and she calls show business, she calls it show off business, which I always think is funny. And I always think it's so annoying how people take credit after they have big successes. But they also say, when they're taking credit for big success, like how important failure is and how you learn from failure, and like while they're holding the Academy Award, right? So I thought it would be fun to, right after we failed, so we had this weekend and the movie tanked, and on Monday I did that thing, The Town, that Matt Bellany podcast, and I got on it, and I'm like, we failed, and I'm living in the middle of it, and I'm going to let you ask me questions, and I'm going to tell you how it feels. Now, it wasn't particularly fun to do, and I'm not sure it was the best thing for the business, which is also true. However, the amount of, I never got more feedback from artists after I did it, from anything we've ever done, from any success, from any movie, Whiplash, all the things that we've done. I got 4 or 5 times more incoming from writers and directors and actors and producers and just people in the business like that. It was nice that you did that. So I did feel good about it, even though it might not have been the best business decision. And I'm going to bring Megan back. I promise.
That was my next question. I was like,
I gotta bring her back somehow. I'm working, trying to figure it out.
It was funny. I was just reading earlier today that Quentin Tarantino did a Hollywood Reporter interview earlier this week, and he talked about Death Proof, how that was his first kind of like box office.
What did he say about it exactly?
He said that when Death Proof came out and underperformed, he said that it felt like the movie-going audience was his girlfriend and he was being broken up with. And
It does feel like that.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, can you relate to that feeling where it's like, but you guys loved Megan. What changed?
I'll tell you a funny story. So, about that. So I was really lucky. I got to a play. There was like a couple things happen, and I got to a place, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago, where I didn't feel like that for every movie, and I can tell you guys that with a straight face. Like, if a movie didn't work, I remember it because for 20 years, whether or not a movie worked or didn't, it was like my lifeblood. It was not healthy. Like, I talked to my therapist about it. I'm very competitive. It's not. My mother will tell you it's not good for me. And I try and be less competitive, but it doesn't really work. Anyway, I got to this evolved place about 3 or 4 years ago where I really did like and we had other movies before Megan that didn't work. And when a movie didn't work, I was like, hey, like, I could go surfing with my kids or whatever. Like, I'm not gonna, like, I'm okay. Like, this is great. This is like a new stage of my professional life. And I was so proud. And I talked to my therapist, how proud. I'm like, so evolved. Megan eviscerated that. It was totally, and by the way, I still feel badly about Megan because for so many reasons, but I guess I was just very, very, no one saw it coming, which was very strange. Like, the studio, it was a crazy thing. 5 weeks before Megan opened against F1, and Brad Pitt called his agent, and his agent told me that Brad said to his agent 5 weeks before this, he was like, is this fucking Megan movie gonna beat F1? And that's how it looked 5 weeks before. And then 3 and 2 and 1 weeks before, it was like, well, we're not gonna open to $50 million, which it was looking like, but we're gonna open to, like, 30 and then 28. And then Monday it was like, we're gonna open to 20, and then Wednesday you're gonna 18, and then I don't know even what it did, 9 or 10. So it was really surprising. And anyway, I've clearly got to do a lot more work because I haven't recovered.
Oh, sorry to
Except I'm
set
determined.
You back.
You did. It's a sore spot, but I'm determined to bring her back. Determined.
Okay, that's good. I mean, conversely, you had Five Nights at Freddy's recently, which is I feel better now.
There you go.
One of the rare horror movies to get an A cinema score.
Miracle.
Yeah, that is unheard of. But
want to hear the Five Nights at Freddy's story? I'll tell you that one.
Please do.
Okay.
Yeah. Because I know that movie was in development for so long that it kind of became a joke sometimes about, like, totally. Oh yeah, when the FNAF movie comes out, whenever that is. But you made it happen. You finally made it happen.
So Five Nights at Freddy's is the brainchild of this incredibly gifted artist, deeply eccentric man named Scott Cawthon. Yes. Yay, Scott. And Scott is definitely, certainly one of the most talented, and also his brain is incredible. I mean, he's really one of the smartest people I've ever dealt with in my life. And Scott sold the rights to Warner Brothers to Five Nights at Freddy's like a long time ago, and very quickly, Warner said, well, we're going to do this and this and this with your movie. And Scott's like, you're not doing any of that with my movie. And it was quick not to happen. So I was looking at it, and as soon as the Warner Brothers thing was up, I started pursuing him. And initially I was able to make a deal with him for the rights, but that didn't really mean that. It was competitive, so it meant something, but it didn't really mean much because the question was, could you get the movie made or not? And I started working with him. Like, it took me 8 years to make the movie. And I started working with him, and I first said, Chris Landon, we had done Happy Death Day, and he was in the Paranormal Activity, and Chris Landon is he's kind of the right tone. And I said, Five Nights at Freddy's is great, and Chris agreed to do it, and I was like, we're off to the races, and Scott's like, I don't, and I'm like, no, it's Chris Landon, like this guy. And then I was careful not to do what Warner Brothers did, so I said, okay, and I got way too far out over my skis, so I had to backtrack with Chris Landon. So Scott says, I want Christopher Columbus. That's the only person who will make the movie. I say, okay, let me try and get Christopher Columbus. So I'm like, so I get through. I'm not shy, as you could probably tell, and I get through to Christopher Columbus, and by some stroke again, very, very lucky, although later not lucky, his son loves Five Nights at Freddy's, and he's like, let me see what you got, da 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 da. He's like, I'm in. I'll do it. I'll do Five Nights at Freddy's. I was in San Francisco, and I flew, and we had this meeting in the Valley, and Scott was, and we get in a room, and it's just Scott and Christopher Columbus, the three of us, and we spend like 3 hours, and the meeting's really not going very well. And the meeting ends, and I call Scott. I'm like, I know you guys didn't quite see eye to eye, but da, da, da. He's not directing the movie. And I'm like, Scott, I can't fire Christopher Columbus. First of all, I haven't even paid him. I haven't hired him yet, but we can't. We go through this with about 8 or 9 people. And what I really came to learn it after the movie came out, but what I saw, I have never, ever in my life suggested anyone put up money for a movie. If any of you are approached about putting up money for a movie, if you want to do it as like giving money to a museum to support art, great. If you ever think you're going to get money back, you won't. Okay? Or buy a lottery ticket. It's the same chances. But I said to Scott, after many of these, we have found these Korean directors who only spoke Korean. We had translators on the phone. This movie no one has ever seen in the world. Scott sees, he's like, these are my guys. I call the person who runs Korea in Universal. She distributes all my movies there. She finds these Korean directors. They're so excited. We pay him $100,000. He fires them. Like, it's crazy. But he turns out to be the one who's so smart. And then finally, I said, Scott, this movie's never going to get made unless you finance the movie, because you want to control so much that you're never going to get what you want unless you finance the movie. And that's the only way we can make it. And I think you should do it, because from what I've learned on this journey is that you are connected to the fans in a way that no one else is. And this IP is like so incredibly potent. But that's it. And he did it. And he did finance the first movie. And the kinds of questions that he asked about financing this movie were kinds of questions you wouldn't get from someone who's been in the business for 40 years. Like that's where his brain is like incredible. And his connections to the fans were amazing. And then I'm almost done with 5 minutes, but this is kind of a funny thing. We finally land on the script. He says he agrees to finance it, and getting the person was impossible. And when we got Emma, and then we wrote the script 400 times, and then we finally landed on the script. I cannot make heads or tails out of this script. I mean, it is so impossible to understand. I mean, I literally can't. It makes no sense to me, this script.
You didn't learn the lore?
It had nothing. It was so beyond the lore. It was like, it made no sense. Every rule of development was broken. It was insane, the script. My dear late friend, Jason Constantine, some of you may know, he recently passed away, and he was a great friend and a great lover of genre. He was terrific. He has 3 wonderful sons. One of the sons is a huge Five Nights at Freddy's fan, and he was like the only other executive who really understood how big the movie was going to be. So he would always check in, because he was trying to get it distributed by Lionsgate, and I hadn't sold the rights yet. And we would always talk about it. I said, I was honest with him. I said, Jason, I have a script. Scott wants to make the script. I have no idea if this thing is good, or I can't even understand the script. And he goes, let me give it to my son. I said, great. His son is 16 or whatever. His son, Nick Constantine, reads the script. I get on a Zoom with Jason and his son, and with Jason Constantine and, me, and his son and I, and he's like, it's the greatest. He says the movie that I imagine as a crazy Five Nights at Freddy's fan, my ideal dream. This is 10 times better. Says, you have to make the film. I ended the Zoom. I said, Scott, we're rolling the cameras. Let's go.
I think that's what all these filmmakers who work with you appreciate so much is your trust in their talents.
My postscript, just to be honest, which I probably shouldn't say, but whatever. If there's any press, please don't pre-predict this. When I saw the finished movie, I kind of had the same response. I think it's good. I don't know. I have no idea.
It's a little confusing.
Nick saw it. He came over to my house. He saw a rough cut of the movie. He said, it's just as good as the script. I said, thank God. And off we went.
No, you know what? My wife Chelsea and I watched the movie when it came out, and we were equally kind of like, okay.
The first movie?
Yeah, Five Nights.
You're not a real fan?
Well,
I
never claimed to be a real fan.
Okay, yeah, if you're not a real fan, yeah.
No, sir. My audience, they're real fans. But
you know where Scott was really smart? This is exactly what what it shows, and where Hollywood always makes a mistake is that the studios, they get a big piece of IP, and they say, wow, this has a built-in audience. It's so great. We're going to expand the audience. Mm-hmm. And what Scott did, and sometimes, 1 in a million times, Barbie, it works, but mostly it doesn't work. Mostly you try to expand the audience, you lose both. You lose the fans, and it doesn't expand. And Scott, really from the he didn't say this to me, but now it's clear. He didn't, if you were not intimately familiar with Five Nights at Freddy's, he did not care if you liked this movie or not. I said, well, they're not going to understand. I don't care. If you like, and that's what drove the movie is people who really love Five Nights at Freddy's.
Yeah, there were enough of them.
And understood it, unlike me.
Yeah. Watching the movie though, it was so funny because we were like, well, I guess okay, and we saw these really young fans loving the movie, and the movie is kind of talky and slow.
Yeah.
And we were like, if this is what gets them to like pay attention and watch these dialogue-driven character development scenes, all right, let's go Five Nights. Like, we were really excited for it.
That's good, yeah.
Raising a generation to watch movies properly.
The conversations with the studio about the movie, too, were also hilarious.
Were they doubtful?
Everyone scratched their head, but it was a great moment. It was a great moment in Blumhouse history, and it's all in the book.
It's just, Scott's lucky that he had a champion in you for that because
I was lucky that I had Scott, really, but
we
were lucky to have each other.
Yeah, because I follow like the online box office community, and when that movie was coming out, everyone was so doubtful of it performing well, and I was just sitting there like, these guys don't know the fan base and the audience that exists for this property, but you knew enough to just let Scott do his thing.
Yeah,
and it was such a success.
Yeah. It was a great journey with him. Great journey.
Can I ask whose decision it was to make it day and date? I've always been curious.
Yes, in retrospect, that was a mistake.
Okay.
To make it day and date.
I've always been curious.
But it was my decision
Okay.
with the studio. But I take full credit or blame for it. Really blame. It wasn't a massive mistake. The next movie will not be day and date, but it was a mistake to go day and date.
I mean, it was still the era of that being.
I'll tell you. I just put a little more color on it. In order I'm being a little too hard on myself. In retrospect, it was a mistake. We went day and date because before the movie came out, the studio was guaranteeing a multiple return to Scott, regardless of how the movie performed. He was going to make back 2 or 3x what he had put up before the movie came out. And I called his lawyer, who's this wonderful woman named Laura Magadoff, who's not an entertainment lawyer. She lives in New York. She lives in New Jersey. She works in New York. And she's great. And we've had such fun together over the years. And I was like, Laura, I can't sleep at night. Scott, of course, because he's a genius, didn't want to take the deal. And he was right. But I said, I was like, I'm going to lay down on the train tracks. Like, what if there's an earthquake? The movie opens. Like, no one ever gets guaranteed multiple return before a movie even goes to market. And so that's what happened.
The return was in exchange for it being day and date?
Of course. Yeah, they had to pay a lot of money up front for the right to do that.
Got it.
Before the movie opened or came out.
And day and date just means that it comes out on streaming the same day.
It was on TV the same day it opened in the theater, but it's still the biggest day and date movie ever.
Yeah.
And like I said, it was also close to COVID and
Yep.
blah, blah, blah. But now we're not going to do that.
Yeah. Which, that makes me so excited for the release. I'm sure you're very excited for it as well, coming up.
Only Scott, and I don't want to reveal too much, but I will just say that the amount of money the movie cost was a very significant amount of money given his net worth. It wasn't like it was like, oh well, it was like really significant. And only Scott would be like, this is a mistake. We should release the movie. I don't care how much I'm going to be like. Only Scott. He's so intense like that. And I love him for it.
Another sequel you have coming out soon is Black Phone 2, which I'm really excited for.
Black Phone 2.
Yeah. That was a movie where saw the first one, heard rumblings of a sequel, thought, you don't need to make a sequel to that. Now I am maybe more excited for the sequel than the first one.
Oh, good.
Based on the trailer.
The sequel is great. Scott Derrickson came back. Ethan Hawke came back. It's good, and it's coming soon to a theater near you.
Yeah, and this is the same team pretty much that brought us Sinister, an earlier film of Blumhouse, which has
That's where I first met Scott.
Okay.
On Sinister. Yeah, exactly. That was the first movie he brought us. And Ethan hates horror movies, never did a horror movie, would never going to do a horror movie, is my best friend. So I had a little entree, and he later said the reason he didn't want to do he doesn't like horror movies because he doesn't like to be scared watching a movie, which more than half the audience agrees with him. And he thought the set was going to be scary. The set of a horror movie is not scary. So first of all, he was very relieved to hear that. And second of all, Sinister Scott pitched it kind of what Sinister is like a Sundance drama about a guy choosing his career over his family, but it's sheathed in horror, and that appealed to him. And then he did The Purge. He did all these horror movies after that. Yeah, I converted him.
Aren't you the godfather to his children?
I am.
Okay.
Maya's my goddaughter. Yes, Maya Hawke. Yes,
sweet.
yes. Very sweet.
So he has to keep working for you.
He has to. I don't know. I have to keep working for him.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So you have these filmmakers who are incredible, especially in the horror space.
We did a great TV show with him called Good Lord Bird. You should see it. It's a great TV show. Sorry, go on.
What was the TV show?
It's called Good Lord Bird, and it was a great TV show. And if you haven't seen it, you should see it. It's a 6-part show. We did it for Showtime when Showtime existed, but it's great. Anyway, go on. What were we going to say?
I was just going to say, you have all these filmmakers who are amazing, especially in horror, and they keep coming back to work with you. And I'm assuming it's because you give them this creative control to realize their vision. Because that's Blumhouse's whole deal is, right?
Yeah, it's more complicated than that. I mean, you can't just give creative people, I've come around on this a little bit. You can't just say, do whatever you want to do. They don't come because we say, do whatever you want to do. And by the way, when we started saying that was kind of special. With streaming, it's kind of less special. I think they come because we provide a great turbocharge or machinery, which is what I like to say, to what they want to do, so that we kind of give them more tools than they would have and more ideas that they would have, and great ideas about casting or anything else that they would have working for anywhere else. So we do give filmmakers generally final cut, but we provide them with a lot of options, and we turbocharge marketing and push their movie to success very hard.
So one of the filmmakers who you've worked with is David Gordon Green for Halloween. And I know that you got the Halloween rights when BlacKkKlansman came to you. Is that right?
He still has it. Malik's family forever owns the Halloween
Mustafa.
rights. Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Mustafa, yeah.
So he came to Blumhouse with the rights.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I think that's how.
Mid-2010s, late 2010s.
Yeah, Ryan Turek. Yes.
Yeah.
Ryan Turek's an executive of the company. Has worked for the company for 10 years. Longer, 12 years. And Ryan was instrumental in introducing us to Malik and getting Malik to trust us with his IP for 3 movies. And we had a great time making those 3 movies with David Gordon Green. We brought John Carpenter back, which is really fun. That's a fun story. We all agreed, David, everyone thought, I always think if you're going to make a movie, you should really do as much as you can to somehow involve the people involved with the original movie, as much as you can. Make a deal, pay them. The pie you're going to have is bigger with them, so if you pay them, ultimately everyone's going to wind up better off. Hollywood a lot of times likes to like cut off the people who were involved in the first movie because you have to pay them so much money, but I've always thought it's better to pay them because the next movie will be more successful anyway. Anyway, we went to John Carpenter, and everyone decided, and then so I set up a time to go see him, and he has this little house south of Sunset where he doesn't live, but it's his office, this little funny place. I'd never met him before, and I went in, and I kissed the ring, and I told him how I loved all his movies, and he's very gruff, and I said, I gave him my whole spiel about Blumhouse and artists and this and that, and you could see his eyes glazing over. And he goes, I'm not interested in any of this, I'm not interested. And I said, okay. I said, John, how about this? I didn't say we, although I was kind of a part of it, but I said they are going to make these 3 movies with you or without you. And I'm just here to say, I think the movies would be a lot better with you, but if I walk out this door and you say, no, this movie's still going to be made, and you're not going to be a part of it at all, and his eyebrow kind of went up for a minute, and he laughed, and then I called his agent, and I said, I don't know, and that's kind of that was what, and it was very untrusting in the beginning.
Yeah. And
then we had a great time, and he loved David, and he was involved, and he did the press angrily, but that's kind of his thing.
Yep.
We had a great time, and we have a really good relationship. I'm trying to do The Thing, some version of The Thing with him. I hope is that news? Maybe. And I don't think it is. And so we're talking about that now, and it's a lot of fun. Is that news, Karen? No.
I didn't know that. That's okay. That's my favorite. I love The Thing. Oh boy. Were you also responsible for getting Jamie Lee Curtis involved, since you said you're close to her? Or
yes. Jamie Lee Curtis, I had a very, very contentious conversation with her lawyer. This very knowledgeable gentleman named Alan Wertheimer, who, to his credit, I just saw at Toronto. This is like 8 years later, and he said, you've been a great partner to Jamie Lee Curtis. And I said, when I first called you about Halloween, you did not think I was going to be, did you? And he said, no, I did not. But we came out at peace, and it was kind of a nice conversation. So yeah, I really wanted to have Jamie in the movies, and I forget what finally got her to do it, but anyway, we did. We had a great lunch together, and she's been a great partner on all these movies, and now she's producing movies with us, and she produced, we just did this show for Amazon, based on the Patricia Cornwell books called on the Scarpetta character, and Nicole Kidman plays Scarpetta, and we've shot a season. It'll be on next year, and we're about to shoot our 2nd season, and that was all because of Jamie Lee Curtis.
And she produced The Lost Bus.
She brought us The Lost Bus, which is our movie. That's the Matthew McConaughey movie I was talking about that my mom says is a real movie, and that comes out on Apple in a week. It's been in some theaters. It's Paul Greengrass, and it's a really fun, great movie. Maybe fun is not the right word. It's a really exciting, tense, great movie about an incredible thing that this man named Kevin did, saving these kids from a school in Paradise, California. And it's about it's about his story, and it's terrific. So you should see it.
During the campfire, right? Is that what?
It was during the Paradise Fire. It was called the campfire. Yeah, exactly. And there were 20 kids stuck in a school, and there was no way out, and the school burned down. And he was kind of being told, you should stay at the school, and he'd lived in the town forever, and he said, we're not going to make it if we stay here. And he got all these kids on a bus, and he basically drove through the fire and saved all their lives. Wow. Yeah, it's an amazing story.
How did you choose David Gordon Green for director of the Halloween trilogy, since he's a comedy guy?
I think people are, I think directors are good directors. I never really thought, like, a good horror director, sure, they make good horror movies, but I always think a good director will make a good horror movie, because horror movies, as you know, are really, the scares only work if the drama and the writing works. You don't, if you're not involved and engaged in the storytelling, the movie, the best jump scare in the world doesn't work. And you can have kind of a stupid jump scare, like a door slam or something hits, like in Get Out, you know, the big scare when a deer hits a window. You know how many movies of deers hitting windows? Like, so many. You don't remember them. You remember it in Get Out, not because the deer hitting the window. You remember because the conversation that the two characters are having in the car, it's so tense. She's white, he's black, and there's something weird going on, but what they're talking about, and it's like uncomfortable, and you're like on the edge of your seat, and then the deer hits, and you jump like crazy. So, and Jordan was a comedian, you know, before he did Get Out. He never did horror before. So I always think that a good director, if they have the desire, I always say, we'll help you with the scares. You give us the story, you give us the drama. We can't do that, but we'll help you with the scares. So I often look for directors who aren't necessarily horror directors to come make movies with us.
And a lot of comedians and comedic actors and directors have shown how good they are at horror. You mentioned Jordan, Zach Kreger. I think it's the timing. You know, horror and comedy.
Well, horror and comedy are cousins,
yes.
Because it's the only two genres where you're trying to elicit a verbal vocal reaction from an audience in a big room, and a laugh and a scare are very similar in that if you don't have the timing right, they don't work. I'll tell you a great story about James Wan, who's my partner. He and Lee Wanell. I had a little office on the Fox lot because I was like holding on to the Tooth Fairy halo as long as I could, you know. And so at the end of the Tooth Fairy, they still gave me a little office. And he and James Wan, Lee Wanell and James Wan come and they pitch Insidious. James Wan, you know, basically can't get arrested. He did these 2 movies for Universal. They didn't work. He was like my perfect Blumhouse director because he was super talented and angry. And had a lot to prove. And all he wanted to do was something that wasn't Saw, right? So he wanted to make Insidious. He said, the only thing is it's PG-13. I said, can you make it for $1 million? He said, yes. So he makes Insidious for $1 million, which is a miracle. And we had the first screening of it at Long Beach. And the screening went okay. It didn't go great. And I sat next to him, and the movie ended, and I was kind of like said that to him, you know. I'm like, it seems like it's scary, but something. And he goes, I know exactly what to do. He said, just set a screening for 2 weeks from now, and we're gonna test it again. I'm like, you know, these screenings cost as much as the movie. Seriously? he goes, just do it. So I said, okay. So we screened the movie again. It's the exact same movie as far as you can tell, but people are there's like 6 different moments in the Insidious in the second screening. People are jumping like crazy at these scares. And you can't notice, you notice there's nothing different in the cut of the movie like a mortal. You would probably notice. I couldn't notice anything different. But it just worked. Like the scores went up. It was incredible, and it was a great early. It was the second horror movie we ever did, but it was a great lesson early in my career about timing of a jump scare and how hard it is to get it right. You have to know how to do it. You have to have the right editor, the right director, and how subtle it is because the exact same movie can be super scary or not scary at all based on timing of how you got a scare.
Just a few frames.
Just a few frames, yeah. Or
yeah.
The music isn't a sting or all that stuff. It's really interesting.
We're just about out of time.
Thank God, because I'm out of water and I'm so thirsty.
But I would be remiss.
Any questions?
Hold on, I got one more for you.
Okay.
I got one more
God,
for you.
all
Because
right.
I would be remiss if I did not bring this up.
All right.
Blumhouse recently acquired 50% of the rights to Saw, a franchise near and dear to my heart.
We did.
And this comes after the very successful, very well-crafted Saw X, Saw 10.
Saw 10, yeah.
Yes, of which there was a script written for Saw 11, and some details have started to come out about what that might have been, what that might have looked like. So,
yeah.
I don't know how comfortable you are talking about future plans, but can you say anything about?
Well, yeah, I could. The only thing I could say is it just ties back to my feeling. So Lee and James they created the first movie in every possible way, and Lee Wanell and James Wan, and They kind of did the second movie a bit, but then they really haven't been involved in any of the movies. And the movies are so, some of them are good, some of them are bad, but they've had such a hold on the horror community for so long.
We love them.
And I thought, going back to my John Carpenter and Halloween, Jamie Lee Curtis and Halloween, what I just said about getting the creators involved, I said to James and Lee, like, if I can get these rights, which became available, would you guys think about like reinventing this movie? Would you ever consider that? And they said, if you controlled it, or if James is in my company, so when I control it, he controls it. And Lee may as well be in my company. If we controlled it, yes. So for me, that was enough to go get these rights, which it was very complicated. But we after a year of negotiating, we got the rights, and so we're going to totally reinvent Saw with James and Lee involved, which I'm really, really excited about.
I look forward to seeing what you do.
It's going to be really cool.
Yeah. Because you got the rights for everything. Like,
yeah, we got them all.
You got it all.
You can't think about Saw without paying me.
Well, thank you so much for this. I'd love to hear some questions that we have.
Seeing how insanely popular Five Nights at Freddy's is from the first film, and currently is a haunted house attraction at Universal Studios, is a third film in discussion, as Matthew Lillard teased at LA Comic-Con?
It's the 13 films are in discussion. I mean, I hope to make them forever, but the second one's got to do business before we think about the third one.
Dominic asks, was your film career influenced at all by your father, Irving Blum? And what was it like hanging around the Ferris Gallery when you were a child?
The Ferris Gallery, unfortunately, I wasn't born yet, but it's my middle name, Jason Ferris Blum. I would not have my my success, or even really my vocation, without both of my parents were in love with art. My mother was a professor of art history. My father was an art dealer. And what I got from being raised, I mean, I got many things from being raised by them, but what I got as relates to my business was an incredible appreciation for art and a reverence for artists. So that story about Scott Cawthon does not happen without Irving and Shirley. So thank you.
And Laura asks, could you talk about Blumhouse Games a little bit?
Yeah, we started a game company about 18 months ago, and we're doing more kind of live events with the company, more merch with the company, and we started games. And our game company is kind of in the same, we're doing kind of following the same business model as the movie company, which is we're doing low budget kind of bets on very indie, edgy games, and we're hoping one works.
Steve asks, what was your experience like with Blumhouse Books? Is Blumhouse Books still publishing horror fiction?
I was wondering that myself. We did that for a while. We had a deal with the publisher, and we did publish about 10 or 11 books. Clearly, none of them went off the charts because it's kind of faded away. But now we have our own book that we did, so I have a different relationship to books. And I love books. I love books, and I read lots of books.
Naomi asks, which movie brought back the most memories while writing and putting the book together?
The memory is Oren in my apartment. I always think about Oren in my apartment. I already told the story, but my memories with Oren are the most tingling in my mind when I redid the book.
Juliana asks, which project pushed you the hardest as a producer, and what lessons from that experience shaped the way you approach recent films?
Probably The Purge and Five Nights at Freddy's were the two hardest. The Purge was the first movie I made with Universal, and there was a ton of pressure on it, and it was very complicated. And Five Nights at Freddy's, I told you, those are the two most challenging.
Okay. My name is Oduduwa, and I am an independent producer who basically works in the independent world, who aspires as well to do studio pictures. And one time, I got a lot of scripts, a lot of good horror scripts, and went out trying to raise money for them. And it seems like everyone in the independent world doesn't see horror as a viable genre. Like, they don't think it's a real they don't think it's real movies, like how you said. How do you deal with that in the independent world, dealing with people who are just want to do prestige movies? Because I feel like horror is the most viable genre, actually.
I think it's very hard to change their mind. Horror is the most commercial genre. So if there are people really looking, like I said before, investing in the movie business is a bad investment. But if you had to invest in any kind of movie in the movie business, the best investment is horror. But if people want to make prestige movies, the best thing to do is say, congratulations, that's great, and then find someone else.
Question? Yes.
Hi, Jason. My name's Marty Martin. I'm a film producer. I just started my film production company last year. And basically what I want to ask is, what advice would you give to the new coming film producers that are trying to get started in the current world of AI, post-COVID, post-strikes, and the world of Hollywood right now?
If I was coming into the business right now, the AI is the key thing, and I would meet. There's a bunch of different AI companies that are doing movies right now, and I would get with them, because the future of movies is, whether we like it or not, the future of movies is AI. That doesn't mean. I don't believe that AI is going to make movies from start to finish that we're going to see and enjoy for a long, long time. By the way, if ever, and I just came back from a conference on AI, but AI is going to be used in movie making in every movie we see in 12 to 18 months. So that's the future of movies. And I always, like, my brother wants to be in the movie business. I'm like, AI companies is the future of movie business. So that's what I would do. I'll tell you something interesting about that other question about horror. When Jordan made Get Out, what I thought would happen is that prestige filmmakers, I don't love that word, but I'll use it, would migrate to horror because it's a way to have your story seen by lots and lots of people and say something culturally, or some version of that. And interestingly enough, that didn't happen. But what did happen 10 years later is that when I started, the superstar filmmaker at NYU or USC or whatever, like, that person was definitely not making horror movies. Like, that person was making, like, the movie that was going to win Sundance and Fox Searchlight was going to distribute, and dramas, like prestige indie dramas, whatever. And today, that is no longer true. Like, the cream of the crop filmmakers, young filmmakers today, not all of them, but many, many more of those people are making, for better or for worse, are making horror movies now. Because of, I think it's because of Get Out, and because theatrical distribution is so compromised at the moment. And if you want a big theatrical release and you want to say something and you don't want it to be on streaming, you kind of do horror movies. So I don't know. I thought that was interesting. I thought you'd think that was interesting. Who's next?
Hello. So my question's on Blumhouse TV. My question is for Jamie Lee Curtis and Scarpetta. What made you guys actually come together and agree to a project like that?
So Patricia Cornwell goes to, Amazon has this great conference they do every year called Campfire, which is mostly for authors. And I've been lucky enough to go to it for many years, and so is Jamie, and so is Patricia Cornwell. And they have been trying, Patricia has been, Scarpetta's been in development as a movie since the late 80s. That was like the first Patricia Cornwell Scarpetta book came out. It was a big hit. And all through the 90s, and Jennifer Lopez and actress after actress was attached for 30 years. And the very specific answer to your question is, Jamie Lee Curtis and I went to her and pitched it as TV, which she had been pitched before, but the time was such that she'd never agreed. And for us, the time, again, luck and circumstance, but we got Patricia at the right, the character and the books are really not suited for movies, they're suited for TV. And she finally agreed it would be TV when we went to her 4 or 5 years ago at that conference. And that's how it started. That's what was the genesis of Scarpetta.
You have many years of experience now, but when you first started, is there something you wish you knew at the very start that you know now?
Oh, I'm so glad I didn't know. There's so many things I know now, which if I knew when I started, things would not have gone as well. It's the starting of anything is knowing stuff makes you doubt, whatever. You want to be able to like do dumb things. When I first worked for an independent distribution company, I went to, there used to be a film conference in Italy called MIFED that doesn't exist anymore, but it was like the AFM or the market at Cannes. There was 3 markets a year, and one of them was MIFED in Milan. And you bought and sold film rights at MIFED, which is like you went and you bought, there were only film people there, and you bought, you know, North American video rights to movies. And I went into the New Line offices, and I saw Jim Carrey in The Mask. They had a big picture. And I said, hey, I'm here, my name is Jason Blum. I'm inquiring about the availability of the North American rights to The Mask, which was insane. It's like saying to Disney, like, I'm inquiring about like Frozen 3. Is that available? And anyway, that was it helps when you're young to not know so much, so you just barrel on through stuff.
My name is Ryan Kaplinger. I'm a special education teacher, and I'm also a longtime horror fan. Thank you for the movies, number one. My question is that you did The Black Phone, which is an adaptation of Joe Hill's book or short story. Are you going to do any more adaptations with Joe Hill, possibly even his father, Stephen King, or even with Robert Mauer McCammon, who's one of my favorites?
We did a few Stephen Kings. We did a bad Firestarter, I'm sorry. We did Mr. Harrigan's Phone, which is actually pretty good. It's on Netflix. And we have another thing with Stephen King, which is not announced. Thank God I didn't say that one. And yes, we were talking to Joe Hill about 1 or 2 other projects. Also, we haven't landed on anything, but I think obviously there's no one more talented than both of those people. And hopefully we'll do a lot more with them, both in TV and movies. Well, it was a great pleasure talking to you all. And thank you very much for doing this. I really appreciate it.
It's been great.
And what else? That's it.
Thanks
All
so
right.
much.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.